gently prepare to return your awareness into the outer room. I enfold you in the love of my heart. I ask you to respond the same. I invite you to turn and face everyone and say, and even on your feet, I enfold you in the love of my heart. Thank you, precious hearts. Thank you. And more often, beloved hearts, we will do this in various classes. There is a rebirth that is occurring in your hearts. A true, authentic rebirth is not one that occurs first in the experience side of life, or as a flash of light in the mind. An authentic rebirth that sends forth ripples and lifts you into new sensations of awakening, of becoming, of resurrection, unfolds when it occurs in the heart. Due to the months in which the beginning months of this year till April 28, that the Mother of Jesus the Christ came into the great central sun at the center of the universe. And all that Mother Mary birthed, all that she held in the secret silence, the sacred silence, some of which was revealed in the Calgary gathering, healing our relationship with love. A healing that could be so profound, it removes what we don't even know existed within our emotional body. A core perception against the Mother's presence. This has been extended now to the entire student body. Understanding the laws of the great central sun and my authority of the great central sun magnet, you understand that as new students come in to the academy, what has been given will be brought forth and given to each of them as well. I knew, beloved hearts, I knew because of who Mary was, who she is, the attainment that she has achieved in the almost 2,000 years since her ascension. I knew that what she could achieve in those months of holding silence in the very heart flames of creation would be amazing. No mother intrudes upon another. And I did not intrude upon Mother Mary's journey into the heart of creation. I knew of the great possibilities. And then I held my breath, like many of you. And in the Calgary gathering not so long ago, Mother Mary revealed a few things that was accomplished. And those are just a few things. So much was accomplished that I have adjusted the Radiant Rose Conclave in Edmonton, providing Mother Mary a premier presentation, which means, like Saint Germain in the Resurrection Conclave in Vancouver, like Jesus the Christ in the Diamond Heart Conclave in Montreal, that Mother Mary will present at least 4 times in the Radiant Rose Conclave. One moment. The messenger asks a favor. He asks, and it may be more obvious to you in the front row, it's not obvious to me. The messenger is about 90% through his challenges with the sinuses. The messenger says, if it becomes obvious to you that the messenger requires a nose blanket, that you will just reach and give him one, because I don't sense that faculty. Do you understand? Yes. So I guess you're all going to be, everyone in the front row is going to be watching the messenger's nose. God bless you, precious hearts. Oh my goodness. Oh, is it obvious? Oh, already? And so we've made adjustments so that we give Mother Mary the time that she deserves to explain more of those months in the heart of creation, what she's birthed for you, and what is going to change in your lives, and how this is going to impact your resurrection, and how it's going to impact dramatically this year. Each of you experiencing the most important climb in your life. Rising up into your higher consciousness. And remaining up in your higher consciousness for a few minutes. I have presented the idea, expanded, extrapolated on it in Toronto recently, in introducing the idea of 7 sacred moments. 7 minutes. Done 7 times a day. In Toronto, on the Sunday, I believe it was, or Saturday maybe, we did 3 times. We did 7 sacred minutes, the moments. And it is my desire that as much as possible, you know, I have learned, precious hearts, to not say that we will do something every class, because in your world there's not too many things that are a certainty yet. So I will say in most classes and events, we will try to enter into those 7 sacred moments. In preparation for Mother Mary's initial address in the Rose Conclave, I can say to each of you, you are yet in the outer world. You are in the lower world, where things can happen. And the whole idea of reaching up into your higher consciousness and being in that place for 4 to 5 minutes, and you are open, and the light of your higher consciousness begins to pour down through your mental body, your physical body, your feeling body. as you gain a momentum of this day in, day out, day in, day out, that light itself is creating a golden path. As that golden path between your higher consciousness and your everyday consciousness is strengthened, seamlessly woven, then what begins to happen is that light streaming down from the higher consciousness begins to deliver, begins to carry with it what I am calling an invisible substance. This is an invisible substance that is being delivered through you from the higher worlds. And this will be the first time, except for smaller incidents here and there, but this will be the first time since Jesus was on the earth in his ministry that the invisible substance that was the source of the kind of miracles that happened in Jesus' life returns back into this world. I feel to take a breath, to say something to you, and I will leave it to you as to when you remind yourself of this truth, as to when it is appropriate to lean upon this truth. Your presence, the presence of God individualized, sent you into this world. And this truth is, and you've got to stretch beyond the evangelist point of view. You've got to go a little bit beyond it. And the truth is that Jesus has already saved the world. Now let me restate that. I am the individualization of God, the mighty I am, has already saved the world. And those that Jesus referred to who were to come after him. And he did say it will take some time, but Jesus, before, this was only in the middle of his resurrection process, so he was not ascended. He thought perhaps 700 years. He did not yet know the dark forces that would come in and delay the dark ages, you understand. But nonetheless, Jesus knew, the I Am presence knew that those who would come after him would finish the work. And he called them the Untouchables. Tonight, I'm going to try to push back ancient corridors of old thoughts, beliefs that just don't want your resurrection to happen. To push those out a little bit more so you can breathe a little easier. We have taken this path that is your life in the 20 years that I have been with you in this world. We have covered so much. We've talked about the human and its frailties, and about the human consciousness is a fallen state of consciousness that believes in two powers, good and evil, a human consciousness that is fed by the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We've talked to you about the tree of life that knows only perfection. We've suggested to you that in truth, in reality, reality, in real, there is only one presence, one power, one intelligence. Sooner rather than later, as each of you resurrect into the higher consciousness, more and more the signs will be inside you. You'll see them around you. When it is ideal for you to say to yourself, it's not real. It's not real. Only love is real. Only life, light, is real in its perfect state. And in that perfect state, it's unchangeable. However, it's constantly evolving and expanding. That's the world of higher consciousness. That's the world that exists in the higher stratospheres and realms of planetary systems of worlds. That's the world that angels and ascended masters live in. You have come, each of you, to be an open door and let that world of perfection, of everything we've talked about, to let it in, to make yourself an open door, to make of yourself an instrument, knowing the promise that in the process of being an instrument for something greater than yourself, you eventually become what you are an instrument for. As Jesus the Christ studied just as you in the Himalayan schools, and as the light poured through him, and small miracles became big miracles, the love in his heart became a radiance and a radiation that people could feel. The change, the transformation that was coming over him. And in short periods of time, especially when the first resurrection was mostly complete and he began his ministry. When Jesus began his ministry, there were seamless moments. His disciples had to learn those moments, which is which. There were moments in which Jesus was an amazing channel. He was an amazing instrument of powers and illumination coming through him. And there were moments. And those closest to him could always tell because the eyes changed. There was something else. There was a moment. Jesus was no longer the instrument. His body was no longer the temple. He was no longer the channel. There were moments. Sometimes they would last 5-6 minutes. And sometimes Jesus deliberately allowed those moments to be seen publicly, usually in some deep meditation amongst the masses. And then he would come out of that and he would declare, I am and the Father, we are one. There's no longer two of us. There's not me channeling God. I have become that which is expressing through me. This is your future. And now, precious hearts, it is time to be profoundly clear, as crystal clear as you can be. In the human octave, in the human consciousness that believes in good and bad, and right and wrong, and duality, imprisoned in the soils of fear. That's this world. And so many things try to teach you that this is a temporary world. You will come and you will go until you don't have to come back anymore. But there's a higher world, and that's where your higher consciousness lives. For years we spoke of the fall from grace, the fall from that higher state of consciousness. What exists? What's going on? What's going on in your higher state of consciousness right now? Your higher state of consciousness is God. Oh, maybe not the infinite Mother, Father, God, but your higher consciousness is the individualized, the divine replication. And up in your higher consciousness, you, the I Am Presence, are expressing a constant state of perfection. This is the peace that metaphysicians, initiates, and chelas of the past have hungered for. The Master said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things will be added to you. His beloved asked him, Master, where is this kingdom? It's within you. It's your higher consciousness. It's within you and above you. You can get in both ways. And in that higher consciousness, God is. Consciousness is. And this is where, in the last 2 months, I've been seeking to shift something in you that's part of the tree of knowledge, of duality, to shift that. And that shift comes in the realization that you must not try to get God to do something that God is not already doing. And you can shift the words around if you want. If you wish to be blunt, you are the ones that fell out of heaven. Get back up into heaven. Get back into that higher state of consciousness, and the perfection that exists up there will start pouring down through you into your life here. Here, you face the harsh reality of calling to God, prayers for God to do something in this world is mostly a waste of time. And those who have prayed with success. It is their faith. It is their own faith that answered them. The power of faith. The power of an authentic heart. The power that there is somebody on the other side. Maybe I can't break that seeming glass ceiling yet, but you're going to, and you're going to do it this year. And when you break that seeming glass ceiling and you experience the light of your higher God consciousness streaming in, how the conversation expands. And all the teachings that must come forth, as it has with every initiate that has successfully entered into the kingdom of God, entered into the higher consciousness, all the preparations, the things that you must be taught. How do you wear higher consciousness? How will it express through you? How it will start perfecting everything in your world. But you have to be so clear now. The clarity cannot come later. It has to be now. That if the perfection of your higher consciousness starts showing up in your life tomorrow, it's not because God started doing something that God was not doing yesterday. It's because you pierced through that seeming glass ceiling where God is a constant state of perfection. In everything you can conceive of. Perfect mind, perfect thinking, perfect feeling, perfect heart, perfect love, perfect life, perfect supply, perfect abundance, perfect relationships. So let each of you, and you can put it in your own words, find a way of telling yourself, getting after yourself, reprimanding yourself even at this point to go further. Let me not seek to try to get God to do something that God is not already doing. God is consciousness. Consciousness that's not fractured. Consciousness that's not fallen, collapsed. And then that collapsed part of consciousness is hypnotized. It's hypnotized into believing in good and evil. It's hypnotized into duality. Let me not ever. It's not up to God. God is being God. Consciousness is perfection. It's me. I have got to get back up there. Yogis and prophets and monks have tried for centuries of time. 99% and more failed. Why did they fail? Because in all efforts and all rumors that they heard of this higher kingdom, somehow those rumors got watered down. They missed a piece here, they missed a piece there, and most of all, they missed the most important piece. Lean on me. Intervention. Help is on the way. Realizing you're not to do this journey alone. Realizing there are angels and ascended masters that you can call upon. Lift me, raise me, lift me, raise me up into the higher consciousness that knows only perfection. And then help me, because as I'm raised into that place, I must be open, I must be receptive, I must be a clear channel, there must be no thought taking. How do you approach such a place? How do you approach such a place so that you know that eventually you have victory? Be ye as little children, only in your innocence, only in being able to forget everything you learned from this world. You have heard the story, perhaps, seen the moving picture of the little boy. The life story was written about him. He had appendicitis attack, and while in the hospital, and everyone thought he was going to die, a pastor's son. What is this?
Heaven is for real.
Heaven is for real. And during that time, he had an out-of-body experience. The innocence of a child and past life attainment and a service this child could render. And being raised up out of his body, he saw his parents in two different places, saw what they were doing. He saw the Master Jesus. He saw that there were beautiful, beautiful animals in this kingdom. About a year and a half passed. News began to circulate of a young girl, perhaps 10 years old, that suddenly began bringing through sacred images, pictures of angels, a picture of Jesus. With the 4-year-old's father helping him and discovering about this young girl and getting some of the images that this girl was bringing through and saying, this is what Jesus looks like. The father acquired one of the images that the girl claimed. This 10-year-old girl claimed, this is Jesus, this is how he came to me. The father didn't say anything, he just presented. He put it in around with 5 or 6 other pictures and said, look, son, look at these beautiful pictures. And as the son, his 4-year-old boy, is looking through the pictures, the 3rd or 4th picture is the image of Jesus that the young girl had drawn. And he stopped and said, Daddy, that's him. Who, son? That's Jesus. That's the man I met when I went to heaven. He's the one, Daddy, that you preach about. You know, precious hearts, because you are all under the covenant of Ascended Master teachings. So you know, you've learned that one of the easiest things an Ascended Master can do is change his or her appearance in accordance with necessity and divine purpose. When Jesus communicates with adults, and if there are adults who can be like a wee child, as innocent as a child, if you are free of the religious beliefs that are drowning in the tree of knowledge of good and evil, if you've freed yourself of that, and if the Master comes to you in a dream, a meditation, an experience, that's the Master there. You know that in the 1930s that Jesus appeared over 3 nights to an artist in America. And he sat at his easel and his drawing board and brought that beautiful image through. But when Jesus appears to little children, and you may not know this, you do know that time in the Ascended Master's octave, well, it is said in some literature, spiritual literature, that 1,000 years, Earth time, is 1 day in God's time. Jesus every day spends a few moments visiting children. These are children who've lost their lives and in their preciousness are taken to the plains of bliss and held in a light realm so beautiful. And he comes with his, unlike what you see here, with his golden hair, he comes with his dark hair and his crystal blue eyes. And he comes into a realm of light where children are in the plains of bliss. He does this once a day, and that's Earth Day, for a few minutes. And when he appears, there's a child that sees him, and the child runs up to him. Other children see the child running up to the Master. They start coming. And Jesus expands his light. And Jesus says, children, do you believe that I am the light of the world? And in most cases, the children say, yes, with such smiles. In the next moment, Jesus says, gather around me. And he projects a mist around the children. And he lifts them. And he raises them. And he takes them to the light realm of Shambhala, where they don't have to come back to the earth and can grow up there, study just as you are, and gain their resurrection. Be open, precious hearts, so open at this time. Remind yourself all the promises, all the blessings, all the good things that you've heard. There is but one presence, one power, one intelligence. Life is abundant in every way. This is what exists in the higher worlds. And those who live in the higher worlds live, their daily consciousness is your higher consciousness. Jesus' life came with many promises. The greatest of those are yet to be fulfilled. When I said to each of you, there will be times for you to say to yourself, whatever you face, it's not real. Love cannot separate. Not true love. It's not real. At other times, remember what I have said to you and lean on that if it gets you across a bridge. Jesus has already saved the world. He opened. He turned that key. And the ones that he is sending after him, they are the ones that open the door. And the world that Jesus came to save from self-destruction is saved. That is because there are those upon spiritual paths, individuals who've left churches and religions behind, yet hunger a spiritual truth, are studying and seeking every key. But the key isn't here in the outer world. It's inside you. And that's why all this time of preparing you, I have outlined 7 sacred minutes. The ideal we will reach for this year. Doesn't have to be tomorrow. But hopefully we'll get there by year's end and maintain it after that. 7 times a day for 7 minutes. That's 49 minutes of your time in which you climb up into the higher consciousness. You remain a channel, an instrument. Once you're there, and the light starts pouring down through you, as you come back later in the day and later in the day and tomorrow, it's like that light has become like the hand of God reaching down. That hand of God is actually a golden stream from your higher consciousness down into your everyday thinking consciousness. And then the invisible substance comes down that stream. And the invisible substance is the source of every miracle that will be produced by God in you. I will work with Messenger One and Alexander as we bring forth many entering into those 7 sacred minutes. What's most important for you to know now, is the approach in. You can try hundreds of different ways. And there are hundreds of different kinds of help to get you into that place. With all honesty, I would say if it takes you 4 to 5 minutes of self-talk, because there's no speaking, of you inwardly communicating with yourself just to prepare yourself so that you can acquire 2 minutes of silence. No thoughts. Open. That would be wonderful. But what's the ideal we work towards this year? The ideal is to get there in 2 minutes. And then for 5 minutes, open, receptive. in the silence. I began my discourse with you speaking into, for a brief moment, a sacred rebirth that is taking place in your heart. It is so deep. No matter what happens in the human world, no hurt, no wound, no loss can attach itself to your heart. Oh, you can go through those things in the feeling side of life. But with all the effort that you've made, the friends that you've made in angels and ascended masters, healing your relationship with the mother's presence, it is a literal truth now. Your heart belongs to God. But in this case, it belongs to the feminine principle of God. And the rebirth that is taking place in your heart, that Mother Mary will seal with a radiant rose inside the heart, and a cross of light inside your mind, will be the first major rebirth that will set forth each of you further through your passages of resurrection. As I stated recently, this student body has now been raised. Of the 33 passages it takes to get to be a fully resurrected God being like Jesus was, this student body has been raised up into the 17th passage. What will not change is that some of you will start working with elements of the 18th passage and the 19th passage, because we don't do one at a time. We do the majority of a passage one at a time, but we can breathe into the others that are forthcoming. That is a major accomplishment. That accomplishment has been made because of your faith. Your faith in the truth that's being revealed to you. Your faith in my presence in this universe. And faith always rewards. I hope you will take the full 2 minutes of self-preparation. We will gather every 7 minutes, 7 sacred minutes. We'll gather them into a collection so that you have 50 or 75 of them. And that each day you can use different ways of getting in there. The most important force that Mary will expand on at Conclave, the most intense force and power that you will use like a rocket, is the Magdalene energy. The Magdalene force, which has long been hidden in the base of the feeling body. In Toronto, a special guest came and she talked about prejudice. Do any of you remember who that special guest was? Queen of Light. And how she animated your messenger's garment. And she talked about the evil of prejudice, racial prejudice, sexual prejudice, political prejudice, all kinds of prejudice. It is the worst kind of evil when evil is acting out. And the Queen of Light extracted that. And I desire each of you sometime this week, because what is given to one is then given to the entire student body, that you will acknowledge in your inner quiet time, that you will acknowledge that the Queen of Light has come to you and she has extracted, even though, because if something is so deep in your emotional body, you may not be aware that it's acting. Even a feeling, and I'm sure you will all understand it, even a feeling of feeling better or more important than another person. You must know this is prejudice. And you must know that prejudice will always seek to veil itself so you don't see through it. I wish you to thank the Queen of Light in your heart for removing prejudice. It is the heaviest weight in the emotional body. Yet you do not know why she came to Toronto and why she did this for you. Of the things that get inside a person's emotional body, the more destructive, the more wicked, the more hurtful and hateful, those things, like a heavy weight, will seek to float down through the water element of the emotional body to the bottom, where it can be hidden over, and no, the person does not even know that it is there. But what also is there? What is there at the bottom of your emotional body? It's the power that drives your will. I've spoken at length with you in the past about determination and the sheer determination and the force of determination. Yet even then I did not reveal the entirety. That force of determination that can move mountains is the Magdalene energy. It's the Magdalene force. It's the foundation. It's the bedrock of your emotional body. It's what prejudice over many lifetimes has covered up, until people felt they had no will, no determination, self-determination left to change their reality. If you will acknowledge that the Queen of Light has come to this entire student body and removed the prejudice hidden at the bottom of the emotional body. Why? Because everything must come together. You must, with all your efforts, you must have a power, a force that as you reach up, coming up from your emotional body is this Magdalene energy that just pushes to the side any noise in the outer self. And when that's pushed aside, and you're held in the loving silence, that Magdalene energy just pushes you through that seeming glass ceiling, and you begin to breathe in all the perfection of your higher mental body. The ideal will be 2 minutes preparation time, 7 minutes of getting up there, being the instrument. Each approach can be different. Quite often it'll depend what you were doing just the last 2 hours. Do you need to settle yourself down? Do you need to take some deep breaths? Do you need to remind yourself not to fear? Do you need to remind yourself, choose peace, be still? And then as we do these sacred moments, you'll realize the length of intervention that you can call in to assist you. When you return after your break, a son will take you in to 7 sacred moments. Into your higher consciousness. And if a master is guiding you, you must lean on the master. If he takes 4 minutes just to prepare you, and you feel you're already in the silence, you got to trust the master. Maybe it's a superficial silence. Maybe you're not deep enough. Do you understand? I thank you. As you can see, our beloved Excalibur, messenger number 2, has returned. In preparation, your messengers are going to Salt Lake City tomorrow. Messenger number 2's father, Brad, is joining them. I know that each of you just want to pour your love to Excalibur. But I ask you to do it quickly and be brief. I ask you to honor his sacred space. There be no conversation and no questions. Just pour your love, give him a hug, and move on. I thank you, and I love you immensely, beloved roses. Beloved Excalibur.
Mother Akasha, at the moment, I don't desire any hugs or anything. I just want to feel my own space.
Thank you for speaking up.
And everyone understanding that.
Everyone would understand, and I thank you, son, for finding your voice. Indeed, it is a fragile time. God bless. Love him and bless him from a distance. Namaste, precious hearts.